Hi, I'm Rob Teale and welcome to my shed. Today I want to talk about one of the cars I've been working on for a while, and this is Bill and Helen's 1966 right-hand drive Sunbeam Tiger. If you're old enough to remember the TV show Get Smart and Maxwell Smart the quirky detective, he drove a Sunbeam Tiger. Now that's probably the most famous Tiger on the planet, I would say. This one, very low mileage car that's lived a lot of its life in a barn in England. Low mileage, low wear everywhere, but it was quite rusty. It was a car sold new in the UK. It's been on salted roads, so we had to do quite a bit of repair work to the body. The engine has just had a light refurbishment. We replaced the piston rings and bearings, timing chain, camshaft and things like that. Rebuilt the carburetor, rebuilt the distributor, and rebuilt all the accessories, the starter motor and the generator. Throughout the restoration, we've replaced all of the steel brake lines, the fuel lines and things like that. Every component has been remanufactured. So we've rebuilt the original clutch cylinder, we've rebuilt the brake booster over here, and that's back to as new condition. And throughout the restoration, we've tried to retain as many of the original components and refurbish them where possible instead of replacing them. You've got to love the original finish of this dash. None of it's ever been touched. There was a bad nicotine stain across the wood grain and I cleaned that off with a little bit of compound. The gauges, I've just polished the chrome on them. That's all I've done to those. The opening over here, the dark chocolate paint around this little corner of the wood was all flaking away. So I've chipped all that off, sanded it, and then I've repainted that. We've still got to refinish the steering wheel, but that's a job for a little bit later on. Over the next few weeks I'll be finishing up the assembly of the car, but there's a lot of little component restoration work to do as we go, and I like to do this stuff as I'm putting the car together, because otherwise you wind up with a whole pile of stuff just sitting around that's all beautified and ready to go, but it might get damaged, dirty, dusty at the time. So as I'm putting the car together and I need parts, chrome mouldings for example, I'll do any restoration work on those, I'll polish them and then fit them to the car, and then they're safe. Now, this has been the first project that we've taken on for an international client, and it's been a huge learning curve for us. We spend a lot of time emailing. We email stuff backwards and forwards on the progress of the car, pictures and things like that, and once a year Bill and Helen have been coming out to look at the car, and they were only here the other day and they were blown away with it. They're quite happy with the finish, the way the car's going, and we're hoping to have the car finished in the next few weeks while they're in Australia so that they can actually drive it here before they go back home to England. A few little fun Tiger facts. Every Tiger was assembled as a 4-cylinder Alpine and drove off the assembly line with a 4-cylinder motor in it. They were then driven down the road to the Jensen company, who took the engines and the transmissions and the differentials out and put the V8 driveline in them. So in a sense, this is a car that was manufactured twice. The original 4-cylinder floor tunnel was all removed and a V8 one was welded into the car. And this was done by a company other than the original. Now, if you're going to be truly concourse, there's a lot of pieces that were welded into the engine bay, and Jensen welded them over the top of the original paint. So wherever there's an add-in piece in the Tiger, it's got a bit of burnt paint underneath the finish in the engine bay. Now, we haven't gone that far with this car, but I've often thought that it would be kind of cool to have actually painted the engine bay once, gone around with the torch and burnt a bit of the paint and then just scuffed it off and painted over the top of that. Things like the exhaust system. Originally it was fitted with one exhaust pipe, being a 4-cylinder motor. So one side of the car has got exhaust mounts that are spot welded to the floor, and the other side has got exhaust mounts that have been welded in with an oxyacetylene torch. So the whole car is just riddled with these little bits and pieces, the quirkiness between the 4-cylinder version and the V8 version. In a sense, this has been a truly global restoration. We sourced a lot of replacement parts from America. Bill has scoured the UK for original parts, and even the chrome work was redone in England. So this week I'll be back working on the Tiger, and I've got a lot of little finishing up things to do. The headlights will go in, we'll get the wiring finished off and should have everything working in that aspect. The radio needs a bit of restoration work, and even the radio speaker, we've got the original one of those, and I've bead blasted a lot of parts and they're ready for the proper finishes to be put on those. So we should be able to get that all fitted this week. The top frame I've got dismantled and I'm going to repaint all of that. We'll match the colour up and get the original grey finish on that. And then once that's done, we should be just about ready to bleed the brakes and test drive it, and then we'll send it off to the trimmer. So there we have it, the update on the Tiger. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Rob Teale. Catch you next time.